In a world where fate is measured by wealth and survival depends on unseen judgments, fear spreads quietly through the streets of Zikola. As the long-awaited day approaches, lives begin to hang in the balance, each decision drawing the line between hope and destruction. Time passed quietly, and Khaled stepped out into the streets of the Western District, walking through the calm of its night after emerging from that tunnel he had nearly finished digging. He hoped to complete it soon, to let the days pass quickly, and to regain some of his intelligence so he could escape Zikola. He kept walking, lost in thought. Had Aseel read his papers? Did she realize how much he loved her? Suddenly, he was startled as a group of soldiers approached, surrounded him, and seized him. He immediately asked, "Why are you holding me? I haven't done anything." Their leader replied harshly, "Yes, you haven't done anything." Then he continued, "The ruler's wife gave birth tonight, poor man, and Zikola Day will be in 7 days. Khaled shouted, "What? No, she still had 2 months left." The commander laughed mockingly at his soldiers. "I think he's the poorest one we've met." Then he asked him, "Don't you know that some are born after just 7 months? He then gestured to his men as he turned his horse. "Seize him and put him with the other poor people of our district until they are presented to the doctors of Zikola." What happened with the soldiers was a shock to Khaled. The commander's words struck his ears like thunder, making him forget everything around him. He tried to break free from the soldiers holding him, but couldn't. They took him to a large palace near the eastern edge of the Western District. There they led him into an empty room in the basement and shut the iron door behind him. The dim light inside was overwhelmed by darkness. He sat in one corner, burying his head in his hands, as if the shock had paralyzed his thoughts. Then he stood up again, walked toward the iron door, and shouted, "You must be mistaken. You must be mistaken. I have to leave." He suddenly fell silent when he heard a voice behind him. "Leave? Go where?" "Oh?" Khaled turned and saw a man sitting in a distant corner of the room. His features were not clear at first, but as Khaled approached, they gradually became visible. A man who appeared to be in his 40s. Khaled asked, "Who are you?" The man replied calmly, "Poor, just like you." Khaled remained silent until the man asked, "Why don't you sit?" He answered, "I want to get out of here. I have to get out." The man smiled. "If only we could all leave. Sit down, don't waste your time. Once you've come here, there's no hope left except that someone is poorer than you." Then he continued after a brief pause, "Or that luck is on your side in Zikola." Khaled sat beside him and asked, "What's your name?" The man replied, "I'm Jawad." Khaled continued, "Are we the only ones here?" Jawad answered, "Wait, they still have another day before the doctors arrive. Until then, they'll bring many more poor people here. Haven't you seen these days before?" Khaled replied, "No, this is my first time. I'm not from Zikola." Jawad fell silent, then smiled and said, "You should have saved your intelligence for a day like this." Khaled asked sarcastically, "And why didn't you save yours?" Jawad let out a long sigh, then looked at him. "You could say it's fate. Anyone who saw me just days ago would never have imagined that I'd become one of Zikola's poor. But time turns everything upside down without warning." Khaled interrupted him. "You remind me of myself. I used to have a lot of intelligence, and I lost it suddenly too, but for a strong reason. I lost it to return to my homeland. But you? Why did you lose your wealth?" He replied, "It's a long story. Maybe you'll tell it to those you know if you survive. You see, I'm 43 years old." He sighed, then continued, "Like most men of Zikola, I worked just to live, and to avoid ever ending up in this room. I wasn't rich, but I wasn't poor either. I lived day by day, earning just enough to be happy without saving anything beyond my needs. And as long as there were people poorer than me, poverty never worried me. Until one day, I fell in love with a girl here, a girl who lives in this district. My dream became to marry her. He paused, and Khaled urged him to continue. So he went on. I was very bold. I went to her and told her I wanted to marry her. But her father asked for a very high dowry. Khaled smiled and interrupted softly. I know the rest. You kept working to gather the dowry until you gave it to her father. And then Zikola Day came. Jawad nodded in agreement, and Khaled continued. It's just like my story. We both struggled for that dowry. You for your beloved, and I for my return home. Jawad added, She's waiting for me. If I get out of here, we'll get married. She loves me deeply. She told me she wants to have children who will be among the wealthy of Zikola. Khaled asked in surprise, You would let your children live here in Zikola? Jawad answered, Of course. Khaled continued, I thought that after what happened to you, if you survived this, you'd leave Zikola. Jawad looked at him, puzzled. Leave? Go where? Zikola is our homeland. We love it. Khaled looked at him. You are being killed in this homeland. Jawad fell silent for a moment, longer this time, then said, You may think that. But despite everything, I don't believe I'll ever find a better home for me or my children. Zikola has given us so much. It has given us strength and pride in being its people, a pride felt by both the rich and the poor. He smiled, as if remembering something. When one of us leaves through the gate of Zikola to another city, he boasts that he is Zikolan. Everyone shows him great respect, and no one would dare harm even a hair on his head. Then he continued, I am poor today. Perhaps the doctors will choose me among the poorest. Perhaps I will be slaughtered. But I would be slaughtered for the happiness of our ruler and his child, and how we love our ruler. Our rulers have always made us strong. Khaled interrupted, astonished. Why don't you seem worried or sad? How can you be so calm? He replied, I won't hide it from you. I was one of those who worked hard to avoid ever coming here. I would be very happy if I survived, but I see it as shameful to be sad if I don't. Then he stood up and took a... The streets of the Western District were crowded with its people after news spread that the ruler's wife had given birth and that Zikola Day would arrive in just a few days. Yamen moved among them, searching everywhere for Khaled after he hadn't returned to Aseel's residence since leaving. He kept asking everyone he met about him, that tall, broad-shouldered young man with long black hair and a soft, dark beard, but no one had an answer. Anxiety began to creep into his heart when he noticed soldiers spreading through the streets, searching for the poorest among them. His fears were confirmed when a young boy told him he had seen Khaled being dragged by soldiers toward the palace of the poor. Yamen froze in place, unsure what to do. He immediately returned to Aseel's residence and asked one of the servants if she had come back. The servant told him she hadn't, which only deepened his distress. His thoughts were consumed by Khaled, who might be slaughtered in a few days, and by the fact that his fate now lay in Aseel's hands. Restless, Yamen paced back and forth, unable to control himself. He clutched the paper Aseel had dropped, then rushed out of the residence toward the edges of the Western District until he reached the road leading to the Central District. He stood at its side, waiting for a carriage heading that way. He knew it was late and night had fallen over Zikola, but he refused to lose hope. When a carriage passed, he asked the driver to take him along, but the man refused. Every carriage that followed either rejected him or said it wasn't heading to the Central District, until finally an old man well over 80 approached in a carriage. Yamen stopped him and said, I want to go with you to the Central District. The old man replied, I don't take strangers. Then he added, What's wrong with you young people? Why don't you walk? At your age, I used to cross all of Zikola on foot. Yamen answered, "Fine, I'll cross it on foot." The old man urged his horse forward, muttering under his breath as if cursing him. The carriage moved ahead, and Yamen glared at him angrily. But once it had gone a short distance, he suddenly ran after it, grabbed onto its rear, and clung tightly. His legs kept running to match the horse's speed, and every time he tried to plant his feet on the wooden board at the back, they slipped, until finally he managed to hold on firmly. He remained hanging there as the old man sat at the front, whipping the horse to go faster, then began singing in a weak, broken voice as if to keep himself company. Yamen listened, almost laughing, but he feared being discovered, so he kept his laughter to himself. Time passed. Meanwhile, Khaled remained imprisoned in the room of the poor, their numbers steadily increasing. From time to time, the door would open, another poor man would be thrown inside, then it would shut again. Khaled sat silently in his corner, watching Jawad as he approached each newcomer to learn their story. Then Khaled would turn inward, asking himself, "What is Yamen doing? What is Aseel doing? Will my life end here in Zikola? Or is there still hope that could change my fate?" At last, the old man's carriage reached the central district, where silence and stillness prevailed. Only a few soldiers and palace guards could be seen in its streets, their features lit by flaming lamps. As soon as the carriage slowed, Yamen jumped off, leaving the old man to continue on, unaware he had ever been there. He adjusted his clothes, brushed off the dust, and hurried toward the ruler's palace. There, a guard stopped him and asked immediately, "Who are you?" Yamen replied confidently, raising his voice, "I am the physician's assistant." Then he snapped, "Don't you know who I am? Who are you to question me?" The guard responded, "My apologies, I didn't recognize you." Yamen lifted his head. "Good. Now let me in, or you'll regret it. You know my work could make you the poorest man in Zikola. Now move." Tension appeared on the guard's face. "Yes, sir. This way. That's her chamber, but she must be asleep. Dawn is near." Yamen paused, then said, "I can't wait. Tell one of the maids to inform her that her assistant is waiting downstairs for an urgent matter." The guard replied, "Very well. Please go to the first room on the ground floor. She will come to you there." Aseel sat in her chamber, going through Khaled's papers once again, her face heavy with sorrow. A knock came at her door and a maid entered, informing her that her assistant was waiting downstairs and wished to speak with her about something urgent. She spoke immediately, "Khaled!" Then she steadied herself and asked, "What does he want?" The maid replied, "I don't know, my lady. He's waiting for you downstairs." Aseel fell silent for a moment, then gestured lightly. "All right." The maid left while Aseel remained where she was, lost in thought, asking herself, "What brought you here, Khaled? Did you find out your papers reached me by accident, and now you want to tell me they aren't yours? Or do you want to tell me that you truly love that other girl, and that I am nothing more than someone you like to help?" She looked at the mirror before her and murmured, "Maybe they really weren't his papers. Maybe he wanted to test how much I love him, how jealous I am." Then she questioned herself again. And what if that's the truth? What if he really loves the other girl? What will you do? She glanced toward the door. "Fine. I'll go down and see what you want, Khaled." She changed her clothes, left her room, and descended the stairs to the lower floor. She headed toward the room where she had been told her assistant was waiting. As soon as she entered, she was about to speak, then froze in surprise. "Yamen?" He replied, "Yes. I'm sorry for coming at such a late hour." She said, "I thought you were Khaled." He paused, then said, "The soldiers have taken Khaled for Zikola Day." She reacted in shock. "What?" He continued, his face tense. "Yes. The soldiers seized him while he was walking through the streets of the Western District." She fell silent, and he went on. "You know he doesn't deserve this. We have to help him. He must get out. He has to return to his country, Aseel. We promised him that. Aseel replied coldly. What can we do? You know the laws of Zikola better than I do. He raised his voice. Yes, I do. But you have to do the impossible to save him. How can you be this calm when you know how much he loves you? She snapped back. Loves me? Then she smiled bitterly. You mean the one who has only ever loved Mona, the love of his life? Or are you trying to deny what he wrote in his papers? He fell silent, thinking, then pulled out a sheet of paper from his clothes. Read this. He wrote this too. It fell from you when the ruler's soldiers came. He handed her the paper and added as he turned toward the door. If I knew someone loved me like that, I would do the impossible for them. Then he left. Aseel held the paper and read it. She realized it was a continuation of what he had written before, that he had loved her since the day he came to Zikola. She could no longer hold herself together. Tears streamed down her face as she rushed back to her chamber in the ruler's palace, climbing the stairs quickly, her tears visible to the astonished maids, while the palace itself was filled with joy over the newborn child. She entered her room, collapsed onto her bed, and continued to cry. The sun rose, followed by a slow-moving day that dragged on for Khaled like a crawling turtle. News spread throughout the city that the poor men and women of Zikola had been gathered from all its districts, waiting for the doctors to reduce their numbers to only the poorest among them. After that, the physician Aseel would make her final decision regarding the 3 poorest who would stand before the Zikola. Yamen could barely hold himself together, anxiously waiting to see what the doctors of the Western District would decide the next day. Aseel, meanwhile, remained in the ruler's palace, silently begging time to pass faster. Everyone noticed her tension and sudden change since her assistant had come to see her. The next day, Khaled and the others remained confined in their room until the door suddenly opened. The commander of the soldiers entered and said, "Move. You will now be presented to the doctors." The soldiers formed 2 lines, creating a passage in the middle of the room. Khaled and the others began walking between them until they reached a wide hall, where they were ordered to stand in formation. Khaled noticed pale-looking women among them, who would also be presented to the doctors. He realized they must have been held in another room. With a quick glance, he estimated that the total number of poor men and women did not exceed 20. He looked beside him and saw Jawad, then whispered, "How many will they choose from us?" Jawad replied, "I don't know. They will choose the poorest among us." A soldier suddenly shouted at them to be silent. Moments later, 2 men entered. Those present immediately recognized them as the doctors from their elegant attire, refined garments, and luxurious sandals. The doctors gestured for the poor to sit, then one of them instructed the commander of the soldiers to bring them forward one by one. And so, beneath the weight of silence and uncertainty, they waited, each heart carrying its own story, its own fear, and its own fragile hope. For in Zikola, destiny was no longer in their hands, but in the judgment that was yet to come.